Welcome back, you guys, to the Mind Shift Experiment. We are on episode 4, and guess what? I think we've figured out our audio. I know. Thank you so much for bearing with us and the support and the love and the feedback and everything in between. We seriously feel so grateful. We knew we were starting this, not having every resource. We literally just decided to show up and do it messy because we knew if we just didn't do it, that we might never get to it. So you've been asking us to go deeper. So here we go. What if everything you believe is real is just a loop of the identity you've been living in?
Most people try to change their life by chasing outcomes, but real transformation happens when you become the version of yourself who's already aligned with what God has prepared for you. This episode reveals the spiritual and neurological mechanics of how to shift identity, alignment first, frequency second, action third. So that is where we want to get, because I think a lot of times people realize that, you attain something that you become that person all of a sudden, but really it's about establishing yourself in that identity today. A year ago when I realized that I was on the trajectory that I was like, I am a high caliber woman. I might not look like it right now, but inside my head, there is a high caliber woman in there right now. My hair might be, shedding a lot with that postpartum experience I've got going on. I am not at the weight that I want. And a year ago, I had terrible melasma, splotches all over my face, and redness. But you know what? I knew that if I let those things hold me back, I would never eventually become the high caliber woman I saw in my head. And what I realized is I needed to change the tendencies that I was currently doing in my life that were not high caliber women. I used to have a really hard time with picking my face. I would love to see that zit come up and I would be like, oh yes, this is gonna dopamine hit right away. But I realized, you're like, oh, that was such a relief. But then I realized, you know what? A high caliber woman doesn't pick her face. And in order to become that, I had to change that now. And so that is something I have really taken a grasp over the last year. It's been a really hard thing to overcome. You see that come up and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. But then you deal with the aftermath of the redness, the splotchy, it's recovering, it gets a little crusty, it's nasty. But I realized once I stopped picking the zit, they almost always went away. And so instead of focusing on that brief satisfaction that I was getting from that, I got more satisfaction by seeing, you know what, I know that zit is going to go away. And I have so much satisfaction by not picking it now that I know it's going to go away and everything's going to be fine. Old Carter would have been like, oh, I've got to pop this. I got to do this. Everyone's going to be judging me. Everyone's going to be thinking, oh my gosh, she sells skincare and has a zit on her face. No, a high caliber woman is like, I don't care. I have a cycle. I have hormones rushing through my body. There's different things that happen. I might have a huge cortisol spike and it causes that to pop up, whatever. But that was just one aspect of me realizing a high caliber woman doesn't pick her face. A high caliber woman doesn't let a bad hair day ruin her day. And that was what I realized I needed to step into, is that being the person that I want to be in the future has to happen today. And if I look at myself compared to today versus a year ago, the trajectory is up to the sky. People have seen my transformation happen in real time. And that's because I woke up one day and I said, I decided to change. And that's exactly how it has to happen for people. And people think that it's this gradual thing that you have to step into. No, it's literally just something you decide to do one morning and change your life.
I mean, it's putting faith into motion.
Exactly.
That's exactly what it is. Here's the thing. I think a lot of people will rely on very surface level tools like vision boards, mental manifestation, affirmations, postcards, flat linear work, when the work is an inner shift. It's an identity shift. It all comes from within, because if you use tools, but then don't believe in yourself while using them, I mean, it's like nothing. It's fully null and void. It's like throwing something out into the abyss and being like, okay, well, there's that.
I put it on a vision board. It must work,
Put it on a vision board. It must work. And here's the thing. A lot of people, you want to know something crazy? In 2022, I made a vision board and I put a lot of intention into it, right? I didn't do it on my phone. I didn't do it from magazines. I went searching online. I printed things out. And every single time I made this vision board, I put emotion and intention into it. As in, I felt what it would feel like to have it. And it's crazy because in my mind, while I was making this vision board, I was like, here's the thing. I think this is probably a 5-year vision board because we had just bought a house like 6-7 months prior to this. And I wanted a farm so bad. I hated the neighborhood life, but all I put on there, I put farm and cows and land and acreage and creek. And like, it was very centered around that. And it was a crazy, wild chain of events. And I'll have to tell you the story because it's insane, that ended up leading into that vision board becoming my reality that year, which none of it logistically made actual sense. It was one of those things where I'm like, I actually don't know how that happened, but it did. And here's what's crazy. And I'll get, I know we're getting a little off topic, but I feel like this is so relevant. So I made this vision board. I put all this intention into it. And Chris and I, for fun, like to randomly scroll Zillow. Everybody does it, right? You scroll Zillow for these houses and you're like, yeah, right, no way. But you do it. It's like a dopamine hit. And you save it, just like you save workouts that you have no intention on using at some point in your life, right? But you're like, yes to the meal plan, yes to the workouts, yes to the houses. You do all these things. And we were on Zillow one day, and one day I had this gut instinct to just expand the search outside of the area I was looking at, and I find this house, and it meets everything on my dream board. Now, backstory, we are 0% financially prepared to buy a home. 0%. In every way, okay? Now, we knew, again, it was something, but we had just bought a house like 6-7 months. Nope, at this point, it was 9 months prior to this. And we knew we'd make a big it was just a whole thing. Like I was in a position to where I should not have been even looking for a house, let alone buying it. I decided, I get somebody who's a friend that does, she's a mortgage broker. And I'm like, can you just pre-approve me for this house? And she was like, sure. I mean, she just pre-approved me on paper so that we could go see it. We actually didn't go through the actual pre-approval process. This is where it gets insane too. Chris and I decided to go see this house, which mind you have to have a pre-approval to come and see this house. And we show up and we drive down the driveway, and our hearts, like, there are tears in our eyes, and we're like, this is our dream. Like, this is actually what we want. We're looking at the price going, there's no way we can get this. But we sit down, like, it made us so emotional that we sat down later that day and we called our mortgage broker and we were like, can we make this happen? And she's like, we can try. And so we did. So we put an offer in on the house, and there were some counter offers and back and forth, and we decided to go for it. And again, we went in with a complete unknown, and we were just like, I was like, just with these series of events, I believe this is meant to be. There's no way it isn't. And so it gets even crazier because at that time, because we weren't prepared to purchase a house, we were going to have to do what's called a jumbo loan. And with the jumbo loan, you have to have a very specific credit score. And at that time, like I said, when I said we were not prepared to do this, we were absolutely not prepared. And we ended up having to work with a credit person to help us get to, because for a jumbo loan, you basically need perfect credit. You still have to have money down. There's just a series of things that had to happen. And so we're working with this credit person. We're all trying to rush this process that really can't be rushed. And the credit girl was like, I'm sorry, like I can't make this go any faster. And our mortgage broker is like, we have to have this in today. Like, we have to lock in your stuff today for this jumbo loan. And I said, you know what? I released it. I decided to take a little bit of microdose of a mushroom, a little more than a microdose, and I released it. I said, you know what? I don't care anymore. If it's meant to be, it'll be. If it's not, it's not. Whatever. At the same time, this was also the day we found out what we were going to be walking away with cash from selling our house. Okay. 3 hours after this situation of like, I'm positive we're about to lose the house, I get a call, and she's like, for the first time in 10 years, something just happened. She goes, the stipulations for a conventional loan changed to your exact loan amount. And the amount we owed down at closing was the exact amount we walked away from with the sale of our house. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I say that story because the vision board plays into it, right? But it's really emitting that emotion and that belief, that internal belief. And then here's what happened. We saw this house, and once I saw it in person, I knew it was mine. I had no clue how it was going to happen. I had no clue when, where, how, what. Like, it felt impossible, but I knew it was going to happen. And then when I thought it wasn't, I said, you know what? It doesn't matter. I said, I feel like this house is so meant to be that it is ours, that I know it will happen. It will work out. It literally doesn't matter. And literally, I released it in so many ways that it didn't, the outcome I detached from. And then it happened. It was just such a crazy thing that, I mean, it just is what, like, it has me shaking a little bit when you think about it. And then when we get here, the peace that just encompassed us, like, this is my paradise, my happy place, my joy on earth, like our actual dream. And, like I had mentioned in the first episode, we were put in a position to where we almost had to sell it. And I said, no, I did not go through that to not have this. Like, we will always and forever have this place no matter what. It is so ingrained. There is a actual soul connection to me in this land. And I don't know how, why, when, what, or where, but I know it's there for how everything happened. And I had to tell that story because I feel like it really calls out that proof, the inner identity will create the shift, right? But I hear a lot of people say, well, I believe it, but, and that's where they're mixing it up. You're missing it. You're missing the but. When you say but, or you tell me you believe it, but you don't really believe it here, you saying it out loud to me is not going to convince yourself if you don't believe it yourself. That is where the shift happens. You want to know how to create your life and the life that you want. That is where the work happens. It's inner work. And now sometimes you're going to have to do some dark night of the soul work and some inner child work and some shadow work and things like that. But that's what has to be done to create these things. It's not just a shift one day that you're just like, okay, here we are. It's a little bit more complex than that,
Well, that brought me to how we got our home. And so during COVID, Tyler and I were essential workers. So we went into work every day. Like, we did not have a normal COVID experience. He works in logistics. I used to work there as well. And while we were driving to work every morning where no one was on the streets, we just used that time to pray. And for whatever reason, I'm likening this to vision boards because, same intention, you're using a different sort of communication to work itself through. And for whatever reason, I chose this wording when I was praying about finding our home that we would buy. It said, God, guide us to our home. I didn't get specific. I didn't, for whatever reason, I chose that wording. And I said it every day for a year. When it finally got down to us starting to look for a home, we realized that we could look in a neighborhood well above what we had originally thought. And so we start looking. And then all of a sudden, my parents' best friends bought this home that we're currently in. And they were going to tear it down and build their forever home on it. Well, they're in their 70s and they were like, why do we want to do that in our 70s?
No.
And so my parents knew this inner workings of this, and what their plan was to make money off of this property was they were going to split the lot. It was almost 2 acres and they changed it to an acre and a whatever. And so that they were going to list this current house well under what they paid for it. And it was within our price range. And it literally was handed to us. Like, hey, do you want this off-listing home in a perfect neighborhood 2 miles away from your parents? I was like, yeah. So we saved X amount of money on not having a realtor and doing it all on our own. And when I say that I had such peace, I was like, God literally guided us to it. I didn't have to go searching for it. It was all the legwork was taken off of me. And last year, with the economy, really things started to turn. And my husband is working through a lot within himself and developing his personal relationship with God. And, when that happens, the enemy really does mess with you a lot. When you're trying to overcome that mindset and not fall into the ego, enemy, Satan, however you want to frame it, I want to be inclusive here. And he was really struggling with not doing as well as he had previously been doing when we first bought our home and thinking we were going to lose our home. And I mean, we went on a very strict budget. We talked about money. It was all the time. And it was getting to stress me out. But I was so confident in knowing God guided us to this home, handed it to us. I know for certain that we will have the means to take care of and keep this home. And so that last year was a huge breakthrough for him to like lean on God and trust in that, because he now sees how irrational all that was. We were nowhere near close to losing our home, but he was under the impression that we were one paycheck away from losing our home, and the energy that that brought in. And so thankfully, like, I was so firmly rooted in knowing that this is our home. We were guided to it. The prayer was answered to a T. I have nothing to worry about. I was able to be that grounding force for him. And now a year later, he's adapting this mindset as well. He's trusting the process. And so it really is just a beautiful thing that when you fully believe, and like when I said that quote at the beginning, it's alignment first, frequency second, and action third. And so it's alignment with what you're seeking and looking for, and then becoming the frequency of that state of being, the high caliber woman, the woman who has a sourdough bakery in her house, whatever it might be. You know, I'm just trying to think, people have these goals for themselves and they're not lofty. There's a reason.
Aligning with who you want to be now, not later. You know, so many people wait for the win. When I have this, when I've graduated, when I've got the job I want, when I have the house I want, when my bathroom's more aesthetic or my house is more aesthetic, I can do content. When I lose weight, when I do this, when I do that. Stop doing that. That is why you are living in a loop. You are creating the reality you do not want. Don't win your life away. We're not guaranteed the next 40 seconds or the next 40 years. And I know I've said that before, but I cannot reiterate and stress that enough. Stop acting like you're immortal. That is not the only thing guaranteed in life. Not Texas. I'm not going to say that quote. I do disagree with that. Is death, though. That is the only thing that is certain in life, is death. Stop acting like that's not going to happen and align with the person that you want to be now. You show up every day and act like her. You know what I tell people in my one-on-ones and my mentoring calls? I say, listen, what are your dreams? What are your goals? Tell me your 5-year plan. Be very specific when you do this. All right, now I want you to tell me, what would your day look like as this person? What would you feel like? What would your mental health be like? Your peace, your joy, your closet, whatever. Let's get very detailed. I said, show up and start acting like that person. If that person has lost weight and eats a certain way and has a certain type of business, are you showing up right now like that person? If you're not, that's why you're not that person. You know, you can't sit here and claim that you want this perfect body, but yet you're not willing to put in the work now. Like, you can't wait for things to pop out of thin air. That's just not how it works. You know, so many people, blame outside sources for their lack of success. And I see it all the time. You know, I don't have that personality. I don't have a big following. I don't have the aesthetic house. I don't have this. I don't have that. Do you blame the gym when you don't show up because you don't lose weight?
Damn.
No, because it's on you.
Yeah.
And I know, I do these things, just so you know, they're little ADHD tangents. It's okay.
But no, that segues perfectly into what we spoke about before we started recording, is that you need to be content with where you're at. If you are not happy with the weight that you're at, you need to love yourself right now. You need to love this version of yourself in order for you to finally accept that you will lose the weight, because when you do lose the weight, you're going to think it's not good enough and that you're going to have the body dysmorphia creep back in. But right now, I love myself. And you know what? People are telling me all the time how beautiful I am. When I tell them that I'm on a weight loss journey, they're like, wow, you look incredible. Before, people weren't, thank you, but people weren't saying that to me. But because I made the shift of being like, you know what, I love who I am today. I may not fit into 75% of the things that I want to be wearing right now, but that's okay, because I use Nuuly and I rent my clothes, and that's fine. That's how I've worked it out.
Well, that goes perfectly with the choosing to embody peace and purpose before your external life reflects it, before your external things reflect it. Embody that. It will change your life. I read this quote. It wasn't a quote. It was really just something that somebody put out there. And it was like, most people, the things that they have anxiety about don't really matter, because the things that are life or death, you won't have the time to have anxiety about. You act in an immediate response. And so that really hit me. It was just like, when you step back and you look at a lot of our stuff that we stress about and are anxious about, it's so surface level. And it's funny because, and I'm not going to get into it, but I was kind of dealing with something, and I got my blood work results back, and it was weird how everything else fell away. all the other problems, the drama, the this, the that, the little things that have been causing me stress, which here's the thing, I'm human, right? No matter how much I've progressed internally or peaceful, like with peace and everything, I'm still human. I'm working on that. But, I will say it was wild to watch it all be washed away by a new wave that came in showing me, and it was a gift that it showed me what doesn't matter and what does matter. And it was just kind of a beautiful aha moment where I felt a sense of being defeated, but also I felt a sense of power and knowing that I have the knowledge and the power to shift this, that I understand this. Thank God I understand this the way that I do, things like that. And it's funny because same day I was hit with another situation that I felt like was a test, and it was a test to have you evolved in this area. And at first I was like, I don't know, have I evolved? And I'm about to get my period. So I was just like, have I evolved? Are you really going to test me again, back to back like this? Like, are we really doing this? And I literally was met with this. You said you evolved. I'm just showing you if you've evolved or not.
Dang.
And I was like, oh, okay. On that note, you're right. I'm sorry for my feelings. Let's rewind and check ourselves. And once I did that, I've just been able to laugh at the situation. It's bizarre. And I'm still just kind of like, why? And I'm not even going to put it out there because it is, at this point, it's just, we're looking at it as comedic relief at this moment, because what a test. And, I've been preaching this, love thy neighbor, love thy neighbor. That's the biggest lesson I've learned. And I was tested to prove to myself that I had actually learned that lesson. And woo, that is, I will say, that is one of the hardest things, which is why I think it was so heavily emphasized, because it is very, very difficult thing. But, I just,
No,
I feel
that's
like I need to
definitely
leave it at that.
no, that's definitely what happens is like you have the same lesson over and over again, and like you'll get it wrong a million times, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to do it differently this time. And then it keeps on happening, and until you're at to the point where you laugh at it and you have the pause, it doesn't trigger you. Like that is, you're like, yeah, okay, I have evolved then. And then it happens again like 6 months later and you're like, I don't like this test. I thought I passed this already. But it's a constant evolving. And that's what, I saw this reel this past week that was like, I hate when people say that life is like a constant healing process, because that has like almost like a negative connotation to it, that there's something that we're lacking that we need to continue to gain. But I like referencing as life as a continuous evolution process, and that we're constantly evolving. Healing again is like, it just has something sour to it, but evolving is like you're getting better, you're leveling up, you're checking off that next level that you've achieved in the video game. And then, but like if you fail, you're like, okay, wait, I know how to get back through 1 through 3 to get to level 4 again, like really easily to get, and and it's just a constant gaining and a footing of understanding how to navigate these really triggering lessons that can happen for us. So I applaud you. Yeah, you didn't even bring it up to me until you were like laughing about it. So I was like, okay, this is a step in the right direction.
I waited to talk about it because I was just like, am I okay to And here's the thing. Had it happened any other time of the month, I would have not been triggered at all. But it was the ultimate test. Here's the time of the month that you're going to be the most triggered, the most pissed, and little things were triggering me already that I was just like, and I have to check myself. I know that week before my cycle comes, I probably should stay off responding to certain things, because I am typically a short and abrasive response. Like, listen, when people are DMing me, at the same time, I'm doing 90 other things. Yesterday, I had a chicken in the bathtub. I'm on a one-on-one call, and I'm also answering DMs. And I'm talking to you about the podcast stuff. And I'm doing so much. So like when I respond to people, it's usually just like short and to the point. It's not abrasive. It's just short and to the point. No. If you're asking me a question, the answer is no. I'm going to say no. You want details? I don't have that in me right now. But it's specifically even more intense during that time in my period. And I had somebody go, do you not like me? I said, what do you mean? I said, I actually really like you a lot. I said, sorry, I don't have the mental capacity to make sure I'm responding to in a way that no one takes it wrong. I don't have that in me.
And I respect that about you, honestly. I think it might be a Gemini thing, because
Maybe.
a lot of Geminis I know are.
We're
But
doing
no,
it best,
I
okay?
do love that about you, but when you do use a lot of punctuation and exclamations, I'm like, oh shoot, she really feeling this.
I can be very passionate. That's just who I am. I am a very passionate individual, but I do have to, I've been a lot more cognizant and aware of like, hey, this is your moody week,
Well, I'll never
just maybe.
forget when, so Tyler and I started dating around COVID, and obviously, like, we were, housed together. And we had our first, like, my cycle with him once. And I remember being like, I, like, don't know if I can do this again. And he goes, I'm not going anywhere. I go, shoot, you love me even at my worst. Okay, you are the man. But let's take that passion and talk about the reticular activating system, because that is something that you are super passionate about and have a
Yes.
great way of explaining and getting that out there, because it's a super big buzzword right now
It
that
is
people are
a
talking.
buzzword. And it's crazy because I didn't know anyone was talking. I didn't know anybody knew about it. I've been utilizing the RAS system for a while. I actually created a workbook for people in my company or in my business doing and getting into social selling and branding their social media. And I created it using the RAS system because I wanted people to be able to create new neural pathways. And it literally is like a mindset shift and a 30-day workbook. And it takes 21 days to create a new habit. And so I was like, listen, if you complete the workbook, you will walk away with new neural pathways. You will walk away with new habits. You will walk away with these new things. And I really loved it because there are a few things that I feel like I wouldn't say I've mastered anything. I have not come close to mastering anything, but I have kind of pinpointed and honed in on as like my areas of expertise. And not necessarily that the RAS system is it, but in regards to social media consulting, helping people brand themselves, brand identity, those things I feel that I am good at. And I'm able to talk to people. And, I began this passion when after all my one-on-ones with consulting people about their social media and their branding, they were walking away and going viral after. And I'm like, okay, I'm on to something here because I'm able to target every little piece of who they are, what they're doing, what they're passionate about, and turn it into a system they can utilize to add value, which is how people do well on social media, be relatable and adding value. And so the RAS system was used to create this workbook, which I feel will ultimately help people in so many different areas of their life. And so I've used it for that. I know you've come to me using it really for the mind shift experiment for yourself. So the reticular activating system is a bundle of nerves at the base of your brainstem that acts like a filter between your conscious mind and your subconscious, right? So, Carter and I just were talking about this, and she's like, it's when you get a yellow Jeep and all of a sudden all you see is yellow Jeeps, or when you have a white car, you're going to only see white cars, or, say you never see a green car on the street, but you now have one, or you've really been thinking about it, you're going to see a lot more. It prioritizes familiarity or those thoughts happening within your brain. So what you're constantly focusing on, it becomes the lens through which you see your reality. That is the RAS system. So it helps you, like what I created helped your RAS system create a new familiarity. So you're looking for that. So you're looking for the success within yourself, if you will, because one of my things that I honed in on, and I like beat the table saying this. I said, when you're done with this and somebody asks you what you bring to the table, I want you to be confident that you are the fucking table. That is what I want your brain to understand, because so many people have that they lack that belief system. And so that is why I felt so passionate. Let me help them create this, but also help them create a brand for themselves to utilize social media for anything. Now, when it comes to the RAS system, it is God's neurological delivery system, we like to call it. It is designed to help you find what you're aligned with. But if you're unknowingly Ready? If you're unknowingly aligned with fear, unworthiness, or rejection, that's what it will keep showing you.
Mm.
And I want to repeat what I just said. Your reticular activating system will keep showing you things you're unknowingly aligned with.
Mm.
Fear, unworthiness, rejection, victim mentality, excuses, less than, comparison, all of these things. If those are things you're focusing on, it will keep showing you that. And when you keep seeing those things, you end up believing those things about yourself. You identify. And what I've realized is a lot of people have kind of coated themselves in a blanket of victimhood because it's more comfortable than stepping out and being uncomfortable to remove yourself from that. but it can be done.
Yeah, if you think you're a victim, every time a situation comes your way, you will naturally find the way to be the victim in that situation immediately, every time.
Immediately.
So there's a way you can actually retrain your reticular activating system, and it's trained by repetition, emotion, and belief. That means you don't need to hustle more, you need more alignment. And so some really easy ways to reprogram this. And, I've been talking about this on my social media recently, and people are like, is it really this easy? Like, I've seen people talking about this, but like, I don't think that it's that easy. And I'm like, well, it is, but you also have to believe it. Like, you can't just say these things and think it works. So you want to speak an identity rooted affirmations out loud daily when you're getting ready and looking in the mirror, when you're driving, when you're working out and you're doing a really struggling set and you're like, I can do this. This is incredible. I have an example to show this. Yesterday, Tyler was playing tag with Poppy all through the house, and she was chasing him, and he heard her. She was getting a little tired, but she said to herself, you got this, girl. You can get him. You got it. And when he told me that she did that, I was like, let's go. Like, she's getting it.
Go
like,
Poppy.
Yes, and like working through that exhaustion that she's having, but knowing that speaking to yourself out loud can get you that much farther to help you finish the race. In other ways you can do it, you visualize what God has promised you as if it's already here. Envision it in your brain. Go outside and ground, close your eyes, and truly envision, who do you see? What debt have you paid off? What kind of car are you driving? Where are you living? Who are you married to?
I want to say rewiring how you speak about your truth and your identity and your reality will allow your patterns to be reframed. I'm going to give an example because it goes with this. I knew for a fact that I was going to be successful at what I did, to the point where I let the founder of the company I work with know. I said, he didn't know who I was. I was brand new. I had not done anything. And I looked at him and I said, hey, I want you to remember my name because I'm about to be at the very top of your company. And I was 1 month later. But that is how you have to talk. When I got on my social media, I said, I'm doing this, this, and this. I had not come close to it, but I knew it was mine. I knew I was going to have it. You have to have that innate delusional belief in yourself, and you've got to speak about it, talk about it, be about it, embody it, right? But speak that over yourself. If that means you speak it publicly, and that's what I do, I was like, I'm going to earn this, I'm going to earn that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I've straight up told people, I said, listen, watch me. I am going to build a brand you will never forget. And I know that.
Yeah.
And I just said, watch me. I know I'm doing these things, and I know and am very confident in what I'm going to be, on what I'm becoming, and the brand that I am building.
No, in you doing that, I then was like, okay, it's working for her. I'm going to do it myself. And I'll never forget when I declared that I was like, I'm going to be a Black Olive Star. I'm going to earn those shares. Like, it's going to happen for me. And I was telling a girlfriend about it. And she was like, I was so confident. I was like, yeah, I'm going to earn these shares. Like, I'm going to change my life, like my family's life, generations to come. And my girlfriend's like, heck yeah, you are, girl. How much do you have to do in a month? I said $175,000 in sales. And she goes, oh, dang, how much are you doing now? I go, $15,000. And she goes, oh, okay, yeah, you got it. And I just was like, heck yeah, I do. But like, when I think about that situation, I'm like, yeah, that was pretty wild that I had no doubt in my mind. Yeah, we're going to do, $165,000 more or $160,000 more. And eventually by the end of the year. And sure enough, we did it. And so that's why, like, I had no doubt in my mind. And this also goes back to feeling the gratitude and the peace that's already within yourself. And that's why gratitude is where I got to this point. So all these different things that we've been talking about, especially over the last few episodes, this is essentially rebuilding and rewiring your reticular activating system. And another thing that's super important to do is to interrupt the thoughts that reinforce old story and old patterns within yourself. When you have this negative self-talk come into your brain, if you're not in a place where you can verbally rebuke that, you need to, in your mind, say it under your breath as quiet as you can. Get up and walk away and say it, because sometimes you have to overcome that kind of stuff with auditory words back to it. And that's how you're rewiring old patterns, especially like I'm doing this a lot while I'm working out, and I have, this bum leg. It's not as strong as my left leg. And I'll do alternating exercises and I'll try it on my right leg. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. And I'm like, no, I can gain the muscle to do this. I can eventually do this. And this actually happened for me yesterday. I tried this exercise of like the side plank of like whatever. And I could not. The first 3 reps I did, I was falling to the ground. And I was like, you know what? I know I can do this. And sure enough, I was able to finish the next set without like a hitch. Oops, I hit my mic. And so it truly is overcoming those negative thoughts in the moment. And you need to act in agreement with what you've already declared. You need to believe in it and be in alignment with it and be the frequency of it.
Speaking of, I actually saved a reel that I would love to share because it's literally about your success is determined by your internal alignment. It's literally what it says. So I'm going to play it.
Alignment creates success. It creates more success than hustling, than grinding, because you're in harmony with the flow of energy, right? Think about how much faster you can swim if you swim with the current as opposed to swimming up current. So this is why alignment is everything. You need to figure out, what is it that's keeping me misaligned? And this is the beauty of life. Life is always trying to get you to be in alignment, but it does it through misalignment. So when you feel misaligned, it's because you are grinding. There's something that I'm doing out of fear, out of shame, out of guilt, out of low self-worth. There's something that's causing me to grind against my divine nature. Figure out what that is, fix it, realign, and now you'll see you won't have to grind. And you can just go with the flow of life, and you will produce and create like.
My gosh, yes.
I know.
Mic drop.
I mean, he's not wrong. Like, I have to reiterate this because I have been able to do this. This is exactly how I live my life in alignment now, right? I mean, guys, I'm almost 36 years old. It took me a really long time to understand this, but I also feel grateful that it didn't take me longer. But what I will say is there is such a sense of joy and peace that you will experience. A lot of people think you have to hustle and you've got to grind, like he was saying, and do all these things, but it's about emotional frequency and alignment. That's what it's about. And if you can figure that out, you have to listen to the internal voice. You've got to do some work, right? You're not just going to be like, I'm really passionate about supplements, so I'm going to become a wellness influencer guru on social media, and then that's it. I'm in alignment. It doesn't work like that, right? You still have to take the steps. You still have to put in some work. But let me tell you something. There is a difference between being in alignment and being successful, and hustling out of alignment and grinding in a way that doesn't create success, but it almost looks like success.
That's what Gay Hendricks would call your zone of genius, where you're making good money, your life is good, but like there's the zone of excellence where like life is real good and you control whether time is fast or slow, whether you're sick, whether you have whatever your wildest dreams. But that's where I think we're trying to guide people, is like,
yes,
find that optimum human experience in which you can operate, because the way that God made our bodies is truly incredible. We are a self-healing mechanism. And to think that it's hard to be successful. Why would the creator of this game...
life is hard.
Yeah. Like, why would the creator of the game make it that way? No, like, and so this is funny. I was talking to someone about this. Like, my husband's been reading a lot of David Goggins books, and I don't know much about him, but he's about the hustle, grind. You got to suffer to be successful. And I was talking to a friend about it, and she was like, he thinks that, that's the key to success. But no,
that's his path to success.
Yeah, but the thing is like, that's actually the hack of the matrix. The real actual way of working in alignment with the matrix is doing what we're talking about, being in flow. Forcing is actually hacking the matrix, because you can be successful in force. You can be, but there's actually an easier way for you to do that. And that it's not this, you have to suffer in order to be successful.
I want you guys to think of it this way. Do you remember, it's going to show our age, but The Sims, the cheat code Rosebud. What was it?
Rosebud 69.
Rosebud 69?
Yeah.
That was the cheat code for money. And then you could live whatever Sims life you want. Listen, I want you to think about, and I know this is going to sound so silly, but I want you to think about living your life in alignment and just having the delusional knowing of where your life is going and what you want for yourself. It is the Rosebud 69 of existing. I mean, and people think I'm kidding, but I'm not. And I reference that a lot because I'm like, I did this. Like, I did this. Had I not been living proof of being able to do this, then that would be one thing. But I've been able to figure it out now, not through easy lessons. Okay. It's not been easy, but I've been able to figure this out and understand it. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because it kind of clicked and everything in my life started clicking in a completely different way when I realized what was happening. And I started diving in and doing the research and the understanding and the soul searching and the, to try to understand, wait, how is this possible? And the more I did that, the more it was scientifically backed up in every single way. And I was like, okay, I actually have something here. I am not insane, which some people are going to be like, she's so insane. And what a privilege to feel and think that way. And listen, here's the thing. I know that thought is going to come, but that is a thought that will keep you limited. That is a thought that will hold you back and keep you in misalignment. We all, whether you want to believe it or not, we chose what we are, who we are, when we were born, what we go through. I actually experienced that moment through a very profound moment in psilocybin. I went back and actually got to experience that moment, and it was wild. Where it was just like kind of like a movie theater set where you're watching different movies on how things play out and the lessons and the evolution that you will go through once you experience this. And I know a lot of people are going to think that's insane. Well, I've had experiences before, and this was very on par with that. And so once I experienced that, I started researching and I realized I'm not crazy. This is an actual thing that a lot of people experience. And it gives you a bit of an understanding that, like, we want to blame people for who, what, when, where they're born and what they're born with and what they're born without and things like that. But we all signed up for this individual lesson. At the same time, if you really deeply understand, we're all experiencing the same lessons, just different ways. So I feel like we could twist this and make this about a million different things. But with that, I think we should leeway it into, the emotional frequency of spiritual success or, spiritual access to be successful, because that's what it really, really boils down to. The power of your emotion, the language of your soul, how we feel into what we've prayed for. I mean, it really, and I've probably said this before too, but if you go into a Monday and you start your Monday off bad, you have those typical things. You're going to be like, oh, it's one of those freaking Mondays, or it's going to be one of those days. Guess what? You've set the power of your emotion in motion to create that day. Because all that God heard was, it's going to be one of those days in a negative tone, frequency, and connotation. And then we roll with it. And then every little thing will affirm that it's going to be one of those days for you. However, if you're like, it's going to be one of the best, it is going to be the best day ever. And you set in your mind the intention to go, you know what? I'm going to look for every little thing to create, to prove to me that this is the best day ever. You're going to have the best day ever. It is quite literally the power of your thoughts and your emotions creating your reality. It is actually that simple, which is crazy. And here's the thing. If you're somebody that's not used to that and you want that, and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to try. You're going to let every little thing that happens to you trigger you, and it will set you back, and it will keep happening. And guess what? That is where a loop is created. And you will not be able to get out of that loop until you're like, wait a minute. I got to change this. I got to change this thought. I got to change this pattern. I have to change this.
Well, so that memory just came to me that my dad used to update his voicemail on his work phone every day. And he to update his clients like, hey, it's Thursday, April 17th. I am in the office in the morning, but I've got some afternoon meetings. Give me a call on my cell if you can't reach me. Have a great day. I'm going to have one literally every single time, every day. He edited his voicemail to be that, and he always ended it with, have a great day. I'm going to have one. Okay. Then it became this thing between me and my dad where he would leave for work. He's like, have a great day. And I'm like, I'm going to have one. And then like when I left for college, he would text me and say, have a great day. And then I texted him back, I'm going to have one. But I'll tell you, that right there proved to me how important things like that are to implement, because before he started his company, he was working at this old financial institute, and he knew he was going to get fired that day. He knew that it was coming, but he, for the last however many years, edited his voicemail to be that, and still, knowing that he was walking into work to get fired, said, I'm going to have a great day. Or I'm going to have a great day, whatever. Have a great day, I'm going to have one. I don't know why I botched that, whatever. Someone actually remarked to him, like, you knew this, why did you still do that? He's like, because that's what I do. And, you know, that simple act probably did help him in his mentality with everything. You know, I was 8 years old when he got fired, so I don't really remember much. And I don't, you know, they shielded a lot from me. But I know that that helped him fuel into figuring out what he needed to do next. And he started his own company and became his own boss. And so it's little things like that. And when, I have implemented that girl, what's her name? Manifestation with Kelly, or whoever started the today's going to be the best day ever, or whatever. I've now implemented that every day on my stories. I share a picture
same.
and I say that now. And, sometimes in the moment when I'm doing that, it's hard for me to think that it's going to be the best day ever. However, it's a moment for me to be like, okay, let's recalibrate. Let's ignore whatever just happened the last 30 minutes, 2 hours of the morning that started. And it's going to be the best day ever. And you can look for every little thing, especially when you're looking through life through the lens of child's eyes. Like, everything is a maze and wonderment. And those little blow up things. I mean, anytime we pass one of those things, my children lose their mind. They're like, it's one of those things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the best day ever. We saw one of those, and just that is what I'm trying to carry with them, is that every day can be the best day ever, no matter what, if it's one of those inflatable loop-de-loop thingies or whatever. And just that mindset and doing those things, making that agreement with your mind that have a great day, I'm going to have one. My dad had no idea what he was doing when he started that. He didn't realize that there was some scientific benefit for that. But there was.
I love that so much, actually. I mean, but that is true. You will start to look for little things. Just like if you look for triggers, you're going to be triggered, right? I think it all boils down to, if you can let go of your fear and embody who you want to be and only look for clarity and evidence that you're on the right path and that, then you will find that you will become that. That's what ultimately all boils down to is it's a continuation of us saying the same things in different ways, right? You create your own reality. You create your own reality. It's crazy because when you think about it, the eyes and the brain and how they work on perceiving what's real versus what's not, our eyes only see at a certain capacity. Our brain only understands things at a certain capacity. Our ears only hear certain frequencies. If you really think about that, and also realize that everybody looks at colors differently and we all perceive things differently. April's, that's her talking about, Hunter wrote a 6 with water on the hot tub. And he asked her, hey, what number do you see? And she said 9. And he goes, well, I see 6, but you're not wrong and I'm not wrong. It really proves the power of the brain. And I want you to understand, we're not even using the full capacity of our brain. And honestly, the majority of people aren't really using any of it anymore. They're letting the news use it for them. And so it's just crazy. But that's why you see so many people stuck in that state of victim mentality of tariffs and fear and money, and worrying about the economy is something to worry about, right? We're human. But making that your day ruiner and your anxiety starter, and really just harnessing in that energy, you're creating that to be your reality of lack and of fear. And me, I've not thought about it one time. It does not matter to me. I'm like, okay, well, here's the thing. Can I fix this personally? No, I cannot. Cool. Here's what I want people to understand is control what you can. And you have a lot more control than you realize. Here is what's crazy is there are multiple people, and we are all living in completely different realities while existing at the same time next to each other. Some people are living in their heaven. Some people are living in their version of hell. But we are all existing at the same time. And that is something really that a lot of people won't fully grasp or understand, but that is so important and impactful to understand,
Well, the thing is so when you have a belief, your belief affects your emotion, which then affects your behavior, which then you get results, which then reinforces this behavior and belief that you have. So all of these things are connected with this singular belief that you have. So you change that belief, you then change your emotion around that belief, you then change your behavior around that belief. And now the results from that belief being changed are now changing. So then you get to change the pathway that's in your brain. So that's why it's all comes down to belief and making sure that you can hone in on that. And because what you believe is your reality.
Well, and here's what's crazy. Most people's beliefs aren't even their own.
Right.
Most people are stuck in their own beliefs because their nervous system is addicted to a story that they've been brainwashed to believe their entire life. And, here's the thing. It goes back generation after generation after generation. And sometimes the belief is generational poverty, and sometimes it's generational wealth, and sometimes it's generational blame and victimhood. Sometimes it's generational entrepreneurs and free thinkers. And, here's the thing, you are who you are because of who you were told to be. And that stems from childhood, and that stems from your parents' upbringings and their parents' upbringings and things like that. I want to get into this, and I know this is completely off topic, you guys. We do have an itinerary and we stick to it, but guess what? I'm ADHD. So I want you to bear with me because this goes with it. I promise it does. The story will make sense. But growing up, I have very amazing parents. I have to shout them out. They did their best raising a very anti-authority human being. And I don't know how else to describe myself. Since I was little, I've always hated the connotation of any kind of authoritative figure. I never understood why people told me what I needed to learn and believe. I've never been normal in that aspect, okay? I mean, I went to military school and boarding school and a lot of other things in between, okay? But something that really stood out to me that molded me, because this is a belief, emotion, behavior result, reinforced belief situation. And I want to go into that because my poor father did not understand how to communicate with me. And I wouldn't have understood how to communicate with me. And so my dad, when I was in trouble and when he was disappointed in me, would email me or write me a letter. And in return, my communication skills during arguments was to do that. I didn't know any different. No one taught me differently. I did not know how to handle my emotions. So when Chris and I got married, poor man, the first 4 years was me fucking emailing him anytime I got frustrated because that was the only way I knew to communicate. And I never really thought about it before. I was always like, why am I this way? I mean, I have the letters and the stuff. My dad's probably listening to this, laughing right now. And listen, what I realized is, it's not his fault that he didn't know how to communicate that way with me. Obviously, he never had dealt with me before. I was their first child, and I was difficult, to say the least, because I am just there. I very much rejected existence for a long time as a child. I never understood anything. I never conformed to societal norms. I've always been very, no, I don't agree with anything that you're saying kind of person, and not in a bad way, but in a free thinking way. And I'm very grateful for that now. But I realized that, my dad, his parents, his mom had 4 boys and worked 3 jobs and didn't have the time to be the emotional parent. My dad's dad was never around. He was hip-hopping around from every woman he could, cheating on his wife, doing really insane things. I mean, the man tried to burn their house down with everyone in it one time. So my dad's examples as parents contributed heavily into how he was able to instill that belief in me, and he did as good as he could with the examples that he had. And think about how it stems from their families, and then it goes back and back. I mean, they're Southern, and it creates a cycle which creates a belief and an emotion and a behavior and then a result, and then it keeps going. And here's the thing, I could have kept the cycle and the pattern going, and I could have put that on my children, and then that could have kept going. But I was like, wait, this form of communication is doing me bad, not good. Thank God for my very patient husband. He is phenomenal. We were able to work through that together, but I didn't learn how to properly communicate with people in an argumentative way until my mid to late 20s. And so I feel like this plays well into it. Obviously, it is a pattern and a belief that I gained due to just a series of generational belief or not understanding or lack of love and lack of communication. And that is how everything, if you look at anything from political beliefs, religious beliefs, school beliefs, how you should live, what your future should look like, how many kids you should have, that's what it stems from. It's the same thing. And instead of blaming our issues on them, it's realizing that it's so much bigger than that. This is a generational belief system that creates these emotions, that creates these behaviors that they don't stop until somebody stops it. And it keeps going. Which is why most people are stuck in society with that normal society thinking. They're fighting over politics. They're fighting over religion. They're fighting over these things where it's not about that at all. That when you understand that this is conditioned at brainwashing belief systems that have been instilled in you for generations that ultimately are there to create a society divided instead of a society united. And once you can break free from that system and that understanding, everything in your life changes. You realize how powerful you truly are. And here's the thing, they keep you trapped from this power within the system. And wow, that did take kind of a left turn, right turn, and then a U
No, but we got it. We're
shaped
back on the road.
situation. We're back on the road now.
No, that's exactly it. Like you were like, enough is enough. And also, like, imagine if, Chris was like, okay, this is just how my wife communicates, and like this cycle wouldn't have been broken. So thankfully, like, there's Chris who's like, hey, this ain't normal. Like,
You should see the emails. They were not even like thought out. They were just like, I can't believe you would do this. It's just like,
good thing there was not ChatGPT back then, because
Lord have mercy. I would have been like, act as my lawyer. Because this poor man, we're just so young and we just did not know what we were doing. And like I said, I thank God every day for his patience. That soulmate, golden
Seriously.
retriever of a human being.
yes, thank you, God. Thank you,
God.
God. Like,
Makes me hot and sweaty talking
I
about
know.
it.
Well, like Tyler like has zero opinion on most things. So like it's usually my way, but like when he's like, I do have a preference on this, I'm like, you know what? That's okay, because you let me do pretty much everything else and you're totally fine with having a pink toilet, or if I want a pink fridge or something. He's like, it's a little inconvenient, but okay. Yeah, like we bought a new fridge the other day, and Poppy was
Is
like,
it pink?
no, but Poppy wanted a pink one. And I told her, I said, girl, we will have a house that has a pink fringe in it. Don't you worry. And Tyler's like, yeah, that would actually be really cool. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you are my soulmate. Like, thank you. And then we get to talk about like that. Talk about, an abundance mindset. And, we drove past this is a tangent, but we drove past this Air Force base near us. And Poppy was like, look at those airplanes. I was like, Poppy, we're going to have an airplane one day. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah. And I say those things because I want it to sink in that you can create your reality by fully believing in what you're saying and putting it out
there. We've actually been doing this to our kids since they were little. Camden, when he was like 3 or 4, he was like, I want to go to MIT. I'm going to be a billionaire one day. Like, this kid was little, okay? And we were just like, yes, you are. Yes, you are. And we bought him a notebook, and he called it the Billionaire Notebook, for like Inventor's Billionaire Notebook or something like that. Mind you, he was like 4. This, around 4 to 5 years old, he started writing Elon Musk letters. Hasn't received a response. Thanks, Elon. Broke a child's heart, for real. What the hell? He would be like, hey, man, I really like your work. This coming from a 5-year-old. And we're like,
that's incredible.
He's like, I really like your work. And he like knew exactly what program he wanted to go to at MIT and where he wanted to intern, and like the specifics in this child's brain. And here's the thing. Most people these days, because of the society that we live in, would be like, be realistic. Can you afford it? You've got to earn this. You've got to do this. Yeah, right. 1% of people get it. Blah, blah, blah. We have always told our children, you can be whatever you want. And we have said, you create your own reality. You are the co-creator and the creator of your reality. So I want you to understand the depths of that. We've bought books. We've tried to teach them that, instill that in them. You can have whatever you want. When they say, Mommy, are we rich? We say, yes, baby, in every way. Because here's the thing. We want them to understand that it's not about money. It is about belief here and here. It is about the belief system. And we want our children to know and understand that they are capable of anything they want to be, no matter what society says, no matter what somebody else says. As long as we believe in them, I know my children will know that they can and are capable of doing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's beautiful. It's beautiful that we are saying these things and breathing life into the next generation. And we encourage y'all to do that as well, because change, it happens right in your home. And that's how it can domino effect into the rest of the world. It's not about changing the world. It's about changing you. And having that belief system adapted by the next generation.
Well, and we can change the world by how we raise the next generation,
yes.
Right? It's, again, something that, another tangent, but, when we do sports, I see the behavior of some of these parents, how they are to their children, and it kills me. There was one time at a tournament, our sports tournament we were at, I almost got physically sick, by the way. She was talking about her child in front of her child. And I was just thinking, this mother is saying these things, but she's creating a bully who will then bully people to say, and then who will bully his wife. And then it will create a ripple effect. But it is our responsibility to make sure that the children we leave behind are making the world better, not worse. Mm-hmm. And our world is, when you look at it, it can look like it's getting worse if you're consumed with TV and consumed with these things. I don't see it that way. I feel like it's getting better based off of my perception of reality. But what I will say is, we will leave these children behind. And what the world looks like and will become is up to them. Anyways, I feel like we should, now the tangents we've got on, but I feel like that's why we do this. Carter and I talk a lot on the phone and we're like, this should be a podcast. This should be a podcast. And we should just let it go naturally because our tangents end up being the best dang things ever. But what I want to leeway into, and this is completely off topic of where we've been, but how like a good reality shifting protocol that we can give you guys to really work on and do. And for me, it's going to be so different for everybody. Some people it's going to be journaling. Some people it's going to be identity anchoring, intention, speaking life. There are going to be breath work. There's going to be prayer. There could be meditation. It doesn't matter. For me, what works is an internal repeat in my brain. I'm going to have this. And then experiencing how it makes me feel, the emotion, I write it down. I experience the emotion. I fold it up. I put it under my bed. That is like my ritual, if you will, of what I do. And I just know that once I write it down, I know it's mine and I believe it's mine. And then I release it. Because there is something impactful on ask and you shall receive. It doesn't ask and then stress and then receive, or ask and then work hard and then receive. It's ask and you shall receive, which to me translates ask and then trust me that you will receive. So that is how I do it.
I want to, I resonate with that. I wanted to give just a bunch of different ways that you can go about your day. You don't have to do all of these things start to finish, and definitely don't get hard on yourself that, oh my gosh, I didn't say that affirmation to myself this morning. No, that's falling into old self. Be like, you know what? I can go and look in the mirror right now. And so this is something that I would recommend. So this is, you can say woman or man, but I am the woman God called me to be. I don't chase, I align. I don't beg, I embody. I am a magnet for what matches my identity in Him. And you say that out loud in the morning, in the mirror, every morning. And you make eye contact with yourself. Write it with a dry erase marker on your mirror. Another way that you can emotionally rehearse things is to feel it now. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between an imagination and a memory. So rehearse the emotion of being her, being the person that you want to be today. Sit quietly, visualize a moment for your next level life. Feel the joy, the peace, the clarity, and gratitude like it's happening now. Really recommend going out and doing grounding while doing this and receive the earth's energy. And smile. Be cognizant of the muscles that you're straining in your body. Loosen up, soften, and breathe in like what you're intending is already done. You want to do this before making big decisions. If you're about to do content creation or you're starting the day, that is why there's something to having morning prayer or evening prayer, whatever it is. You're starting your day off with an alignment with who you want to be. And so another way that we can rewire our RAS is tracking the shift. You're not trying to create something from scratch. You're training your brain to see what God already placed in front of you. At the end of each day, write down 3 things that you feel like are evidence of your true new identity. Was it a conversation that you had? Was it a compliment someone gave you? Was it a shift in how you responded? Was it a pause before you responded in a triggering way? Was it a new door being opened for you? And keep this journal. Because when you're in that luteal phase or you're about to start your period, you need to look back and think, okay, remind myself, am I in alignment? What compliment did someone give me? Remind yourself that you are becoming this individual for yourself. And another funny way of doing it is opposite day embodiment. I mean, I think your kids would love that. So the old story of you is that you have doubt and you have delays, but the new version of you is you make decisions, you trust, and you act. So you ask yourself daily, what would the highest version of me do in this moment? Then do the opposite of what your old self would have done. Say yes to the scary things. Say no to where you used to people please. Move your body like you love her. Raise your rate. Press publish. Make that content. Pick one opposite day action every day. And that's another way that you can rewire your RAS. And again, it's through prayer and partnering. You're not manifesting alone. You're co-creating with the creator of all things. Every morning, ask yourself, God, what would you have me see, say, or shift today so I can walk in your vision for me? Then act on what comes to mind without needing all the answers first.
That was so good. You know what? Let's give everybody a challenge.
Yes.
I want to challenge you for the next 7 days. So from the moment you listen to this, for the next 7 days, I want you to show up as the version of you who already has everything you want. You already have everything you want and you know it's done. Show up as that version and let us know how you feel day 7. I want you to share the shift, tag us in your stories, your posts, whatever. But I want you to share. If you stick to it for 7 days, let us know, because I feel like it will do something really, really, really important. Here's the thing. If you can do it for 7, then do it for an additional 7. And then do it for an additional 7. And once you hit day 21, you've created a new habit. And I want you to then let us know at day 21 too. Tag us. This is an experiment and a challenge we're giving you. And I will say that this episode in its entirety, it's an activation. It is a foundation for everything that's to come.
Yes. And I wanted to shout out, I am beginning my coaching endeavors, and I'm doing a coaching cohort starting April 27th. And it will be 3 months. There will be 6 calls total. And it is a lot of what we talked about today: remembering you, figuring out self-sabotage tendencies, how to break through with that, establishing new patterns that will serve you long-term, and establishing your zone of excellence, how to get there, what it looks like, and just walking you through that. You know, I really love coaching. I realize that with Olive Tree people and partnering with them. And then there's this aspect that I feel like we're coaching here with the podcast. But I'm really craving more one-on-one. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, please send me a DM at I am the Carter Brown, and I will send you the link to get signed up. But thank you again for all y'all's support. Truly, I mean, everyone's DMs and their story shares and the way that they've commented and rated on the podcast is just truly, it's a pinch me moment every time it happens. Seriously.
It's amazing. And I want to shout out you real quick because I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You know, I was smiling like a proud mom this morning while you were sharing your stuff on your stories. I'm really proud of you because you've shared with me that you've wanted to do this for a very long time. And for you to witness from where you were when I met you last April to now, and you stepping into this version of yourself that you knew and believed in, it's amazing to watch. It's real life mind shift experiment coming to fruition and all of these things. And so please, yes, if you feel called for that further mentoring, Carter is a gem of a human being. I cannot stress that enough. You're amazing within and throughout and in every aspect, and just a beautiful soul altogether who will just pour life and love over you. And if that's somebody where you really need that right now, she is your gal. Trust me, I love you. I love you. I love you. And I want to reiterate the support that we've had. It has been overwhelmingly beautiful in every single amazing way. Thank you guys so much. It's been a little bit tough to navigate something new without any experience, throwing ourselves in. And we have been so grateful for the love and the feedback. And, you know, the only thing we really struggle with now is we cannot figure out how to get Carter Brown also logged into the Instagram. And I single-handedly tried to maintain a business, a team of 10,000 women, a farm, 3 children, and my life at the same time. And so I'm doing my best until we can figure out what Meta's problem is and we can get her logged in. So bear with us, but tag us in everything because I promise you we do our best.
If you are a Meta employee and you are listening to this, can you
Please
slide
help.
into my DMs and help us, please? We are desperate.
We do not. We've tried everything.
Literally everything.
We've chat GPT'd it. We've Googled it. We've spent hours and hours and hours logging in and out of everything and removing it. It's just been a very frustrating process. But
Yeah.
at this point, you know, I know this is episode 4. And I know between episode 1 and 3, we're always just like, okay, bye. Because we just hit a point where we're like, okay, well, I don't know what to say. And so we're not going to do that today. We're going to leave you with this. You know, if you're listening to this, you're not becoming someone new. You're remembering the woman God called you to be. And I'm going to say that one more time. You are not becoming someone new. You are remembering the woman or man God called you to be. And it is time for you to live the life of your dreams. And guess what? You do deserve it.
Amen.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks, y'all.